sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me.
Inside the palace's most guarded chambers, an unexpected confrontation has sent shockwaves through the royal circle.
Breaking right now, the British royal family mired in one of its biggest crises in history.
Princess Anne, revered for her discipline and fierce loyalty to protocol, has reportedly delivered a stunning message to Queen Camilla. She will have no part in Prince William's coronation.
And I felt, you're losing people every single time you have those headlines. We all get that there's a really big, urgent message.
The declaration, firm and uncompromising, has ignited whispers of rivalry and quiet resistance behind closed doors. Alliances are shifting, tensions are rising, and the future of the monarchy feels suddenly uncertain. What truly sparked this dramatic standoff? The silent rift. For a family built on centuries of ceremony, polished appearances, and unshakable tradition, this was the one moment no one truly prepared for. The monarchy has survived wars, scandals, abdications, and public outrage. It prides itself on order, on hierarchy, on knowing exactly who stands where when the crown begins to shift from one head to the next. But as the future of the throne began to center more clearly around Prince William, something unexpected unfolded behind palace doors. What should have been a seamless transition, a united front rallying behind the next king, slowly turned tense. Not loud, not dramatic, just tense. The kind of tension that hides in silence, in glances exchanged across long dining tables, in meetings that grow shorter, in names quietly left off guest lists. Then came the move that stunned even long-time royal watchers. Princess Anne, known for her iron discipline and lifelong loyalty to duty, did something no one predicted. She didn't call a press conference. She didn't confront anyone in public. She didn't even raise her voice. Instead, she acted with calm precision, and the impact was immediate. Queen Consort Camilla was no longer part of the early coronation planning. At first, it seemed impossible. Surely it was a scheduling issue, a simple oversight. But as weeks passed, the pattern became undeniable. High-level strategy meetings were being held. Confidential papers were being circulated. Key decisions about symbolism, ceremony, and structure were being made. And Camilla's name appeared nowhere, not once. Those closest to the process noticed how smoothly it was handled. There was no chaos, no visible rebellion. William's most trusted advisors moved quickly, almost instinctively, as if the direction had already been agreed upon. Documents were shared within a tight inner circle. Conversations stayed contained. The planning continued, but without her. What made it even more shocking was how she found out. There was no formal conversation, no respectful explanation. Instead, questions began surfacing from her own staff. Why hadn't she seen a particular memo? Why had a major planning outline bypassed her office entirely? At first, her team assumed it was an administrative slip. But when follow-up calls went unanswered, the truth became clear. This was intentional. Inside Clarence's house, the emotional impact reportedly hit hard. Camilla had spent years rebuilding her image, earning her position beside the king, slowly securing acceptance within both the institution and the public eye. She believed she had finally cemented her place. Now, without warning, she was being edged out of the most important transition in the monarchy's future. Yet, true to royal custom, there was no public reaction, no complaint, no correction issued to the press. The silence was thick, and that silence said everything. Within palace walls, exclusion is rarely accidental. It is strategic. Some insiders insist Anne acted purely to protect William. They argue that shielding the future king from lingering tensions was necessary. Keeping the focus narrow would prevent distraction. That unity, even if carefully constructed, was more important than hurt feelings. Others see something deeper, a battle not over personalities, but over power, over who shapes the next chapter of the monarchy, over legacy, over influence, over who truly defines what the crown will represent in a modern world watching closely. Whatever the true motive, one fact cannot be ignored. The atmosphere shifted. Without a speech or confrontation, a boundary had been drawn. Camilla, once central, now stood outside the room where the future was being decided. And when lines are drawn in royal history, they are rarely erased without consequence. So what led Princess Anne to take such a calculated stand? Was this loyalty to William, or the result of years of quiet strain finally reaching a breaking point? And how deep does this divide truly go? Keep watching to find out. Anne and Camilla, the silent clash threatening the monarchy. For decades, she has carried out royal duties, from the birth of Prince William to the wedding of Prince Harry. For decades, she has carried out royal service with a seriousness that borders on military precision. No drama, no theatrics, no need for applause. She believes the crown is not a stage, but a responsibility. And when someone like Anne shifts her stance, even slightly, the tremor is felt across palace walls. Yet beneath her composed expression, a quiet strain has been building for years, and at the center of it stands Camilla. From the moment King Charles and Camilla stepped back into public life as a united couple, Anne's posture was clear: polite, correct, distant. She fulfilled every formal obligation required of her, but nothing more. There were no shared charity launches, no warm public exchanges, no visible bond beyond what rank demanded. While other senior royals gradually embraced Camilla's presence, Anne maintained a careful boundary. It was subtle but unmistakable. This restraint was never about rivalry. It was about order. Anne has always believed that a position within the monarchy is earned slowly, through steady service and sacrifice. In her view, the institution survives because everyone understands their limits. Camilla's journey, from public controversy to queen consort, may have been reshaped by time and careful image repair, but Anne never appeared convinced that transformation alone rewrites hierarchy. One insider once described a quiet evening at Balmoral, where Anne, reflecting after an engagement, remarked to a trusted aide that some carry duty as a burden, others as an accessory. She never clarified her meaning. She didn't need to. When Charles ascended the throne, the balance seemed to shift. Camilla's voice grew more confident in internal discussions. She appeared more involved in ceremonial planning. Observers noted a stronger presence during public events. To some, it looked like natural growth into her role. To Anne, it may have looked like expansion beyond it. Behind closed doors, friction reportedly surfaced. At more than one high-profile state function, palace staff noticed moments of subtle correction. During a diplomatic reception, witnesses claim Camilla stepped forward to lead a conversation with a visiting dignitary, only for Anne to step in smoothly, redirecting the exchange and reclaiming the ceremonial focus. There were no raised voices, just a firm adjustment, controlled, intentional. In Anne's mind, this was not personal, it was protective. As Camilla's influence seemed to widen, Anne's concerns reportedly deepened. She began holding private conversations with Prince William, speaking not of personalities, but of structure. The monarchy, she warned, depends on clarity, on knowing exactly where authority begins and ends. If roles blur, stability weakens. And William, already navigating a modern monarchy under intense public scrutiny, could not afford uncertainty within his own ranks. Sources suggest those conversations marked a subtle turning point. Camilla's involvement in future planning, including sensitive ceremonial discussions, appeared to narrow, not publicly, not dramatically, but noticeably. It wasn't retaliation, it was containment. Anne, as always, chose silence over spectacle. But what Anne anticipated, William may have confronted directly. Just weeks ago, according to those close to the Prince of Wales, a private meeting between William and Camilla shifted the atmosphere entirely.
I've seen that experiences such as homelessness, addiction, and poor mental health.
During that closed-door discussion, William reportedly outlined firm expectations about future roles and boundaries. The tone, insiders say, was respectful, but unmistakably resolute. The response he received was not what he expected. So, was there an unspoken divide within the royal family? Let's take a closer look. The hidden clash behind the palace doors. For months, the tension between Prince William and Queen Camilla had been quietly growing, visible only in subtle ways. A pause too long, a glance held a moment too long, a polite exchange carefully measured. Publicly, everything appeared smooth. Smiles were exchanged, hands shaken, and traditions observed. Behind the palace walls, however, the balance was shifting. The breaking point came during a private meeting at Clarence House, intended to ease tensions before the next chapter of the monarchy fully unfolded. Instead, it revealed just how wide the gap had become. William had always carried himself with discipline. As Prince of Wales, he understood the weight of composure and timing. Frustration rarely showed. But as plans for his future coronation emerged, he began to feel unsettled. Camilla's role, once supportive and carefully defined, seemed to be expanding. She attended more key discussions, her voice carried authority in ceremonial matters, and William felt the past encroaching on the space meant for his future. This was no longer about personal feelings, it was about legacy. When he requested the meeting, it was not as a stepson, but as the future king. Those close to the palace say he spoke calmly, choosing words carefully. He asked for space to shape his reign, decide how it would look, and define its symbolism. He acknowledged Camilla's position and did not question her title, but made it clear that certain decisions, especially tied to his coronation, should rest with him and his advisors. No raised voices, no sharp accusations, just a firm request. Step back from the inner planning circle. Camilla reportedly responded lightly, almost playfully, brushing off the concern. To her, the ceremonies were tradition, pageantry, symbolism, nothing more. To William, they were the foundation of his reign. Her dismissal struck a nerve. Years of restraint slipped in that moment. "This is not your crown to shape." The words were measured, but forceful. Silence filled the room. No argument followed, no dramatic exit. William simply nodded and walked out. What followed was strategic. Within days, William quietly aligned with Princess Anne, known for her loyalty and no-nonsense approach. Together, they adjusted the coronation planning. Invitations shifted, agendas changed, meetings scheduled without certain names. There was no public confrontation, only quiet recalibration. In royal life, power moves not through announcements, but through access. Camilla discovered the change not in conversation, but through a mission. A meeting she expected to attend occurred without her. A briefing moved forward without her input. At first, her team assumed oversight. As calls went unanswered and schedules confirmed her absence, reality sank in. She had not been forgotten. She had been removed. Reports suggest she confronted King Charles privately, seeking clarity. Years of rebuilding her image, securing her place, transitioning from controversy to acceptance. Now her influence was slipping. Charles, cautious and measured, offered little resistance. His silence spoke volumes. For Camilla, the realization cut deep. The monarchy she had worked to belong to was evolving, and evolving without her at its center. She did not retreat quietly. Public engagements increased, appearances were scheduled, and strategic visibility became her new approach. Yet despite her efforts to reassert presence, something undeniable was happening. The future of the monarchy was being quietly redefined, and her influence was no longer guaranteed. Because while this silent power struggle unfolded, another figure stepped forward with effortless steadiness. Catherine, Princess of Wales, did not demand space. She did not argue for influence. She simply occupied it, naturally, confidently, and with growing public admiration. Which raises the question, was this conflict truly about exclusion? Or did it secretly revolve around succession in more ways than one? Let's uncover what's behind it. A royal power shift. As rumors swirled behind palace doors about Camilla being edged out, a quiet but powerful shift was underway elsewhere. Unlike the overt power struggles or the tense confrontations whispered about in private corridors, one presence moved with calm inevitability. Catherine, Princess of Wales, didn't demand attention. She didn't issue statements or push her authority. She simply stepped into the space left open, carrying a natural grace and composure that spoke volumes without a single word. Her rise wasn't forced, it wasn't loud. It was the result of patience, thoughtfulness, and an unwavering focus on the task at hand. Senior palace aides later confirmed that her involvement in Prince William's early coronation preparations was far from symbolic. From the very first meetings, Catherine was shaping not just the schedule or guest lists, but the tone and essence of the ceremony itself. Every suggestion, every adjustment reflected a vision that balanced tradition with relevance. Catherine refused to follow the routine just because it had always been done that way. She wanted the coronation to feel meaningful, alive, and connected to the public, particularly to younger generations watching closely. It was her idea to include young people in the procession, giving them a tangible role in what would otherwise have been a rigid, centuries-old ritual. She also proposed a way to honor Queen Elizabeth II that respected history while gently pointing toward the future. A subtle but deliberate blend of legacy and purpose. What set Catherine apart was not just her ideas, but how she delivered them. Calm, measured, and unshakable, she earned the trust of every advisor in the room. Where Camilla's growing assertiveness had drawn attention, raised questions, and occasionally resistance, Catherine moved effortlessly. Her influence wasn't announced. It didn't need to be. Those inside the palace felt it in the way she carried herself, in the clarity of her thinking, and in her seamless alignment with William's vision. One insider summarized it simply: where William brought strength, Catherine brought balance. Together, they weren't just planning a ceremony. They were quietly defining the monarchy's next chapter. There were no headlines marking her ascent, no grand declaration. Yet her presence became impossible to ignore. The palace never formally needed to announce her role because the public already sensed it. After years of scandals, missteps, and public fatigue, people were drawn to her steady, authentic presence. She embodied dignity without arrogance, elegance without pretense, a rare combination that built quiet trust. Polls confirmed what aides had long known. The public responded not to titles or bloodlines, but to authenticity. In that authenticity, Catherine became something Camilla never quite managed, a symbol of reliability, of confidence earned through action rather than perception. Remarkably, she never sought to replace anyone. She didn't compete or push back. She simply embodied what the monarchy was quietly moving toward, and in some ways, what it had once represented. Like one. Every gesture, every like one. Every gesture, every recommendation, every decision sent a message. The monarchy's future was being shaped, and she was at its center. Yet even as William and Catherine's vision began to take firm shape, the palace remained a delicate ecosystem. A hidden meeting at Windsor threatened to undo all the careful orchestration. In private, King Charles summoned Princess Anne for a conversation described by insiders as tense, restrained, and deeply personal. Charles, feeling Camilla's growing pressure, attempted to persuade Anne to reverse her decision, the quiet, decisive action that had kept Camilla out of William's coronation planning. To Camilla, it was an unthinkable humiliation. To Charles, it felt like a fragile unity cracking under the weight. Anne, as always, came not to placate feelings, but to protect the crown. Charles, speaking not as king, but as husband, pleaded for loyalty, for understanding, for recognition of Camilla's endurance, and her belief that she had earned her place. "She is my wife," he reportedly said, voice heavy with emotion. Anne never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her reply was simple, calm, and final. As the palace quietly recalibrates, one truth emerges. Camilla's role may be diminished or entirely rewritten. Will she fade into ceremonial shadow, or is a hidden move waiting to reshape her place in the monarchy? There's more to uncover. Queen Camilla's silent exile. King Charles sat in silence, the weight of years pressing down like a shadow he could no longer shake. Time had sharpened his awareness of the fragility around him. He realized painfully that influence, even for a king, is never absolute. No matter the crown on his head, some battles cannot be won. Anne was one of them. The confrontation had ended not with compromise, but with quiet resolve. She hadn't acted as a sister or ally. She stood firm, immovable, a sentinel guarding tradition with unflinching authority. Camilla, once his anchor through decades of scrutiny and struggle, now occupied the very fault line splitting the family. Charles may have hoped for unity, for harmony behind palace walls, but Anne had drawn a line that could not be crossed. The meeting ended abruptly. No gestures to soften the tension, no words to smooth the edges. A nod, a step back, and Anne was gone. With that, the illusion of cohesion vanished. There would be no staged smiles, no joint appearances, no public display of solidarity. Behind the polished surface, the monarchy's delicate balance had been shaken. What followed wasn't a public storm, but a quiet, calculated upheaval. Every move thereafter carried weight. Anne's silent defiance and William's measured support created ripples that reached every corner of the palace. Even the king, in his solitude, had to confront a harsh truth. Authority in the monarchy is not owned. It is borrowed through tradition, safeguarded by loyalty, and reinforced by those willing to defend principle over convenience. Power is only as enduring as the family willing to protect it. Palace aides scrambled. Drafts of statements were written with painstaking care, each word polished to avoid revealing fractures. When released, the official communication was calm, neutral, and almost sterile. Cooperation among senior royals in support of the Prince of Wales was emphasized, but one conspicuous absence spoke louder than all the sentences combined: Camilla's name. In royal terms, silence can declare more than words ever could. To analysts and observers, the omission confirmed what insiders whispered. Camilla had been deliberately sidelined. She wasn't just excluded, she was being made invisible. Inside the palace, the calmness broadcast to the public was only surface deep. Internal memos flew through corridors with strict instructions. Avoid speculation, stick to the message, and above all, do not mention Camilla in any coronation-related discussion. This was a controlled containment strategy, designed to maintain the appearance of unity while quietly reshaping influence within the institution. But appearances only last so long. Cracks were now visible, and those closest to Camilla reportedly felt betrayed, caught off guard, and enraged. Whispers of frustration and silent anger circulated. Some suggested speaking out, others counseled patience. For Camilla, the damage was already done. Being made invisible in a monarchy where image and perception define power is more than humiliation. It is a subtle form of exile. Every glance, every omitted mention, every carefully curated silence signaled a shift in the balance of influence. The palace, long thought to move in perfect harmony, was revealing its hidden fractures. Had King Charles truly approved every line, or was this a subtle signal of Prince William asserting his authority, and Princess Anne's influence silently reshaping the crown's every word? Let's take a closer look, revealing the hidden royal struggle. How precise the courtier's choreography, the truth has a way of slipping through. This time, it came in the form of a letter that was never meant to leave private hands. Written by Princess Anne, it was intended solely for her brother, King Charles. yet its contents exposed tensions and concerns that reverberated far beyond the palace walls. The letter surfaced weeks before Camilla was gradually edged out of coronation planning. In her characteristically formal style, Anne's words carried an unusual depth of emotion. Behind the restrained phrasing lay a sense of urgency and worry about the very survival of the monarchy. She reflected on the weight of tradition, the invisible burden carried not just by the present generation, but by those who would inherit the crown. Anne warned that without careful limits and disciplined leadership, the monarchy risked devolving into what she described as a pageant of contradiction, a spectacle where appearances could outweigh purpose and personal relationships could compromise duty. Trust, she cautioned, is fragile and can. Trust, she cautioned, is fragile and can erode when family dynamics take precedence over national responsibility. Her focus was on William. She described him as the final pillar capable of blending tradition with vision, a figure whose judgment would shape the future of the crown. Her tone was firm, unflinching, and unapologetic, emphasizing that sometimes the hardest choices must be made for the institution's survival, not personal comfort. Anne urged Charles to consider stepping back, not merely as a brother listening to a sister, but as the custodian of a centuries-old institution that demanded clarity, discipline, and foresight. Letting go, she implied, might be uncomfortable, even painful, but it was a necessary sacrifice for the monarchy to endure. The letter's emergence was more than just a private concern exposed. It illuminated a hidden struggle over influence, perception, and the future of royal authority. The implications of such a candid insight into the palace's inner workings were impossible to ignore. As questions of accountability, transparency, and legacy mount, attention now turns to the public. Where does their loyalty truly lie? And who do they admire most within the royal family? Let's take a closer look at the shifting tides of public favor, public approval, and palace power. Public opinion has always shaped the survival of the British monarchy, but in the modern era, it does far more than influence headlines. It quietly reshapes power itself. Behind palace doors, decisions about influence, visibility, and even coronation roles are no longer guided by tradition alone. They are increasingly driven by how the public feels about each royal figure. Built her reputation not through charm, built her reputation not through charm campaigns or media strategy, but through relentless work. During moments of royal crisis, when scandals or tensions threaten public trust, Anne's steady presence has repeatedly acted as a stabilizing force. A recent feature in Marie Claire highlighted how pivotal she has been in maintaining support for the institution during turbulent times. Her consistency sends a message of continuity, and continuity is the monarchy's lifeline. Public perception today is measurable in polling numbers, social media reactions, and international commentary, and those numbers increasingly favor Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Surveys conducted over the past few years consistently show them ranking among the most trusted and admired members of the royal family. Their image blends tradition with relatability. They appear modern without rejecting history. That balance matters deeply at a time when the monarchy faces questions about relevance. When public approval concentrates around certain figures, it naturally shifts internal influence. Coronation planning, ceremonial prominence, and advisory roles are not decided in isolation from public mood. If the institution senses that the future king and his wife carry the strongest public support, then reinforcing their visibility becomes a strategic necessity. In this context, limiting the influence of others is not always personal. It can be institutional self-preservation. Anne's reported role in reinforcing William's authority fits this pattern. If she believes that public trust rests heavily on William and Catherine's shoulders, then protecting their space to define the next era becomes essential. From her perspective, any dynamic that blurs that focus could weaken the monarchy's standing. The crown survives not just through bloodline, but through belief. If people lose confidence, tradition alone cannot save it. This is where power structures subtly evolve. Official titles remain the same. Hierarchies appear unchanged. Yet real influence flows toward those who command public loyalty. During times of uncertainty, the monarchy has historically adapted by elevating its most respected figures. Anne herself gained renewed admiration through decades of quiet service, particularly after periods when other members faced controversy. That respect translates into moral authority within the family. Coronation roles carry enormous symbolic weight. They signal who embodies the future and who represents continuity. If William and Catherine are seen as the bridge to a stable next chapter, then aligning ceremonies around them becomes more than optics. It becomes a strategy. Every seat at the planning table, every public gesture, every carefully chosen appearance reflects an awareness of how the public will interpret it. Currently hold the strongest public trust, Anne appears to understand that better than most. By safeguarding the figures who currently hold the strongest public trust, she may believe she is safeguarding the monarchy itself. And in a system where symbolism equals survival, that calculation could determine who truly shapes the crown's future. So, what do you think about Princess Anne's action towards Camilla? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.